New camera gear is released what feels like almost every single day, and we're constantly being bombarded with new products, whether new cameras, new lenses, new lights, microphones, you name it, and it feels like we have to be upgrading to the latest and greatest every single time something is announced. But is that the case? Does the fact that a slightly upgraded model of your camera has been announced 2 to 3 years later make yours now useless and obsolete and old? No, that's not the case at all. But that's not what all of these brands want you to believe, because they've got new gear to sell, obviously. That's what they do, and that's the world we live in, and everyone has a job to do. However, it does make it very tricky for us as the consumers, the users and the professionals as the ones using that gear. But the truth is that any camera you buy now is great. There are no bad cameras at all. I tell a lie. This one that I bought off Amazon, the cheapest camera that I could find off Amazon that I made a video about a few weeks ago, that is dreadful. Don't buy that. But on the whole, there are no bad cameras out there, and it is just finding the ones that suit your needs the best. And if it doesn't suit your needs, there will be something that does fit your needs. So here are 3 things that brands want you to forget so that they can sell you more gear. And I think it's important to remember these on the whole every time that you are on the verge of pulling the plug on that new camera, however tempting it may be. The first thing to remember as a photographer or a videographer, as the same rules apply, is that an understanding of composition, lighting, timing are far more crucial than the camera you're using. An experienced photographer, for example, can produce incredible images with the most basic of gear because they've spent years practicing and learning and crafting their techniques to figure out what works and what doesn't. Learning from making mistakes, learning from making bad things, and just making small improvements each and every single time they make something. And when you get to that point, the camera that you use, the gear, the lights, the microphones, they just become a tool to help you make the things that you want to make. And I think for me, at the end of the day, that is the most important thing to remember about gear, is it's just a thing to help you turn your creative ideas into reality. Because it's the creativity and the inspiration that drive what it is you are making, the things that you can see in your head that you want to recreate. Unique perspectives and creative shots and interesting ideas all come from within your head. And without that, the gear itself almost becomes useless. The story or the message that you are trying to get across is what resonates with people and draws people in, whether that is a still photograph or a video. And that's what makes a great image. A great image for me is something that makes you think about it and makes you ask questions and allows the viewer of that, let's say, image, that photograph, to make their own minds up about what might actually be happening in that image. And it lets the viewer's imagination run wild as to what might actually be happening, and they can create their own stories up as well. And sometimes it might be more obvious than others. It could be done through great composition or lighting, and even just repeating the process of going out to take photographs or make videos and figuring out how you can actually tell a story better within your images. As an example, these are a few of my favorite photographs that I've taken recently, and they all tell different stories within them. And the key for me is isolating a subject, thinking about composition and lighting and all of these different things to tell the story that you want. With this one, for example, there's loads of people walking down the streets carrying kayaks on top of their heads. But in the composition, I've thought about the framing with the telegraph pole in the corner. The lighting is backlit, and it just creates this really interesting image that for me makes you ask questions, and it tells a story because you're like, where are they going? Why are they carrying kayaks along a street? There's no water anywhere. That for me is what makes an interesting image. And I could have taken these on literally any camera. I could have taken them on my phone. It really doesn't matter. Reason number 3 is that high-end camera gear is very expensive and it's not accessible to everyone. I know when I first started out, I dreamed of having these high-end cameras, and now I'm in this privileged position where I even get sent some cameras to test out, and I'm making videos about these cameras that I could never even afford a few years ago. Still can't, to be honest. Emphasizing skill over gear means that photography is more inclusive, and it means that people like me, if I take myself back a few years ago, it means that I can still learn photography and I don't need the expensive gear to be able to do that. And I think that's where you learn your skills, where you are using the most basic of gear to be able to learn and improve and get better at what it is you want to get better at. There's no excuse to not be able to go out and practice your photography or your videography anymore, because even the cameras on phones are incredible now, and they are capable of producing some stunning images. And I think that is the best way to learn. Even if you do only have a phone, go out and practice different photography techniques, whether that's composition, messing around with lights. These are the things that help you to get better, not by using high-end camera gear. And I think that's a trap that we all fall into, because we think we need that new camera or that new microphone to make us better, when that is not the case at all. And I think that's actually quite an unhealthy view to have on gear, by thinking that that new piece of gear, that latest piece of tech, will help you to be better. Because it is by using the most basic things that you learn your techniques, you learn your new skills, because you are limiting yourself. And there is that huge thing, which couldn't be more true, that by limiting yourself, you improve your creativity. So when you're first starting out, you might only have your phone, or you might be limited to using an old DSLR with only one kit lens. And honestly, that might feel like it is an issue at the time, but it is not, because it is those limitations that help you learn new skills, and it fosters your creativity by making you think about different things, and you almost become a problem solver. And that is what creativity is all about. It's problem solving. So use that to your advantage, because you are still capable of making stunning things with the most basic of gear. And don't forget that that most basic of gear was probably high-end at one point, because all of these high-end things filter down into the older things, and they then become old themselves. Even though that was high-end a few years ago, they are still incredible pieces of kit. But the same goes for even if you do have access to all of this high-end gear. Go out with one camera and one focal length lens. Limit yourself, and you will find yourself thinking about things differently. And that is when you start to make things that you get even more excited about, and your creativity goes through the roof. And these are the things that we should be thinking about more, instead of just thinking about buying a new piece of gear, because usually we don't need that. It's just that it's almost a very easy excuse to make. Now, I realise by saying all of this, I might sound like I'm making out that gear doesn't matter at all, but that's not true, because gear does matter to a certain point. It's very important, and without it, we wouldn't be able to make all of these incredible things. But I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in specs at all. I just want to go out and make things, and if a camera works well for me and it fits my needs, I'm more than likely going to use it. And for me at the moment, that is Lumix cameras. I'm using Lumix gear almost every single day because it fits my needs perfectly. But without remembering these three things, it becomes a very easy trap to fall into, thinking that more expensive gear means you can make better things and it will make you better. We've all fallen into that trap. I've fallen into myself, and it's just not the case at all. It's your skills, your creativity, and your ability to tell a story that are the most important. The most important thing to remember at the end of the day is that when you show someone a photograph that you're incredibly proud of, or a video that you've spent ages making and you just can't wait to show people, they're not going to be worried about what camera it is you shot it on, what lights you used, what microphone you used. They're more worried about what that might mean to them, because can they see a story in it? Does it mean something to them? Because photographs, videos, and the same goes for music and graphic design and things, it can remind people of, it can bring back people's memories and transport them to certain times, like maybe a holiday. They can remember where they were at a certain time just by viewing that thing or hearing that piece of music. That is what is most important. That's what it's all about, not the gear that you use to make that thing. This is just a video that I wanted to make because I've made a lot of gear videos recently, and I realise I'm in a very privileged position where I get sent a lot of these new cameras for free by brands like Lumix, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I don't want to change it. I love it. I love making videos about cameras. However, I do think it is very important to just remind ourselves that not all of the time the gear is the most important thing, because a lot of the time it actually isn't. I think as long as you're improving your skills, as I've mentioned. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Come and say hello. If you like what you see on this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.